Okay, we are out there. Hopefully I got that set right. Somebody popped up. Must mean I did get it public, so we're okay. We were checking our connection to make sure it was working. So, hello, whoever you are, and welcome. Aaron says hello. Hi, Aaron. I hope you're warm and safe wherever you may be, considering all the storms across the country. We're lucky where we are. It stopped raining here at the moment, so that's good. We only have like, potential flooding, but not right where our house is. It's elsewhere from one of the local rivers, which tends to flood when we get a fair amount of rain this time of year. Core of the Day says, hello, hello, hi. Named after ravens and crows. Sheila says, hello from Sheila H. in West Virginia. Glad to be here. Snow hasn't started yet, but is expected. Aaron says it's 5 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's warming up. So we don't know for sure how long our internet will last. So we'll see what happens. We had some difficulty with it earlier. And I went and got rid of my chat, so I can't see it. There we are. Ravens, crows, magpies, and I think vultures. Theodore says, I absolutely no idea. Okay. Oops. My computer does weird stuff with the touchpad. All right. I'm going to pop that out again. Well, welcome, Theodora. We're cozy, though, at least. Yeah, we don't know if it happened somewhere else because it just sort of went down for, what, about an hour, I think? And then it came back up again. So here we are. Yay. So everyone can hear me, I'm assuming? We're ready to jump in and talk about whatever. Sure is cold in some spots. Sheila says, loud and clear. Awesome. Thank you for letting me know. A lot of Oregon is shut down because of the ice storm that we had. And there's a lot of people without power elsewhere in the state, and I'm sure in other parts of the Pacific Northwest, like up in Washington. Weather is always an interesting thing. It just happens whether we like it or not. And we're certainly getting plenty of it across the states at the moment. So what do we want to talk about today, guys? Give me something. I got my birthday coming up in a couple of days on Wednesday. Always takes a while to get rolling. I did get a video done this week, but it hasn't been published yet. It should come out in the next couple days. Eresham says, hey everyone, hi, welcome to the show. Whoops, I have something in front of my face. Fruit fly? A little fly of some kind. Ruth says, hi all. Hi Ruth, how you doing? Tammy says, happy early birthday. Thank you, Tammy. I'm going to turn 74, which I have a hard time wrapping my brain around, but Sundrop says, hi, hello, Shifranian. Hi, Sundrop. I don't feel 74. But I guess we never do feel our age. We either feel older or younger than we are, depending on what our body's up to and our brain at the time. Ruth says, doing good, and you? Doing all right. Tammy says, you don't look it either. Thank you, Tammy. That's what my daughter says, too. And my granddaughter. It's like, so we're not going to celebrate my birthday with family until next Sunday after the live show. We're going to go over to my son and daughter-in-law's house and have cake with my daughter and granddaughter and hopefully my grandson. Sundrop says, I feel old even though I look young. Yeah, it's all subjective, isn't it? They're just a number and an age, and it really just depends upon how you feel, how old you feel. Sheila says, happy birthday. Do the Fae stop by to say happy birthday? Maybe. We had a sleepless night last night, so we're a little bit slow today. I think I got up first, but then Ian got up, and then my granddaughter also had a hard time sleeping, so we were just like, we don't know why. It wasn't like we were having a big windstorm or anything. It was something in the air just made us all wake up. Tina says, hi everyone listening in. Hi Tina. Gabriel says, hi, greetings from Brazil. Your channel just popped up my screen and here I am already in love with content. Well, great. It's always good that people like the content. Sundrop says, your hair looks good and pretty down. Thank you. I wear it different ways depending on the mood I'm in. This keeps my ears warm. And I have it down. It is like my natural hair color, though, at this point. I think all the color I had in it is gone. I don't think I have any left. I think it's just all me now. So what kind of questions do we want to have? What sort of subjects do we want to talk about? We're having a quiet chat.
I'm thinking I shouldn't say anything at all. Let's be a silent observer.
What are your thoughts on Christian witches? I find it confusing, personally. It doesn't fit my perception of witchcraft and paganism at all. But I figure people can do whatever they want and do it however they want. So, you know, from my own personal position, the two things don't fit, but that's a traditional description of Christianity, I guess, since, you know, they considered us their enemy for so long and considered that we were working for, you know, their bad guy, which we don't. And in traditional witchcraft, most of traditional witchcraft, there's no good guys versus bad guys trying to duke it out for control over the universe or anything like that. So there's not those kinds of sides. And I've told people, like, I'm not a Christian. I haven't been one for a long time. So I can't help people who want to stay Christian and do witchcraft figure out how to do it. They're sort of on their own because I have no personal experience in how to navigate the ways of thinking that make that possible. But I think magic doesn't have to be about religion at all. So I don't know. An eclectic mind says, hello everyone. I hope everyone is well. Quick question. What is the difference between remote viewing and out of body travel? Well, remote viewing, I would say, is mostly mental travel for sure. Um, it's something that you can do just in your thoughts. So you can go somewhere in your mind and see something and still be totally present in your body and draw a picture of it or talk to people and write it down. A real out of body experience is you're disconnected from your physical body enough that it doesn't respond in general to you and what you're doing. And you feel like you are completely somewhere else. You're not looking somewhere else, you are being somewhere else. That would be what I would think. Gabriel says, are you a Wiccan or do you follow other witchcraft pathways? Can you tell more about your story when you found out you were a witch? No, I'm not Wiccan. Wiccan is one of the religions of paganism, of which I'm not a member. It's not just witchcraft, but it's also its own religion and it has its own tenets, etc. And it is an initiatory religion, which means you can't really call yourself a Wiccan unless you're initiated into the path by someone else who's in it. So it's an energy link as well. Although when I first started reading up on witchcraft in the 80s in Starhawk's book, her definition of Wiccan at the time, I figured that's what I was. But now I know that's not what I am. I'm just a witch. But I've always known I was a witch ever since I was little. I kind of was born with the knowledge of being a witch. So I don't know how to answer the became and found out I was a witch because I was like 4. So brains don't work the same when you're that age. It was just, I told people I was a witch in high school. I had already identified completely as a witch and was willing to share it, which in retrospect might have been weird, but I have a hard time keeping secrets. Sheila says, volcano finally erupted in Iceland. Maybe you all felt the change in Mother Earth. Yeah, it's far enough away. There's always volcanoes erupting around the planet, so I don't think that that particular volcano would have made it impossible for us to sleep. So it's probably unlikely since I don't have any known energetic connections to the place. But we don't know why. We just didn't. Arasham says, what are the healing benefits of working with dark light? Imagining my body soaking in black obsidian light has a very soothing effect on my body, very different than white light. Sounds like good grounding and absorbing any negative energies you might have into it, I'm assuming. It's not something I've worked with specifically. Sundrop says, I'm guessing they mix God and Jesus into rituals and spells. They still pray to God while doing craft at the same time, I guess. I can't find much on the subject. We have some people in our group that are Christian witches, so maybe we can start a discussion about it somewhere, like on my private group on Facebook, Siofra's Magic Alcove. Maybe we can get some input from other people that are in the group that are doing it, since they're going to know more about how it's done than me. I'm just guessing. Sandcat says, Kia ora, Shifranian. That means hello in Maori. Thank you. I appreciate that. Gabriel says, what is the best magic way to materialize your wish? Would magical instruments help, and which ones? Well, that depends on you. I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of magical tools that are out there. You can make wands, you can use candle magic, you can use knives, you can Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole section that just talks about the basic ritual tools and what they're for and how to use them. A lot of times people just talk about intent being the only thing that you need, which I disagree with because I think your ability to visualize and magnify your visualization, to believe in your power and have claimed your power is part of that as well. So that's where training comes in, being able to hold a thought for a longer period of time and focus and concentrate, not just decide this is what you want to do. And being able to read the signs and figure out whether it's something the universe can help you manifest and what path is the easiest one for you to follow and take in order to get to where you want to be. Because sometimes it's a circuitous route to get what you want. It's not always just a straight shot. But you can use rocks, I mean, there's so many different potential methods for doing that. I use a lot of wands because I've made a lot of them. And this past week, I've been using my banishing wand to help clear out negative stuff that I've got in my own body, which seems to be working. And Sundrop says, so they say talking to yourself in the mirror, saying negative and positive things is a form of witchcraft. I'll have to continue. Oh, I should have said a form of magic. I'd like to share a short story if I can. Okay, we'll wait for that to come. Corviday says, I'm not personally one. I'm assuming Christian witch, but I know Italian folk witches sometimes work with the saints. Well, Santeria and voodoo and voodoo and so forth also work with the Catholic saints. So they're not strictly Christian, but they do work with their pantheon in that sense.
Candomblé.
And Tim
Candomblé.
Candomblé.
Brazilian.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different forms of magic that incorporate Christian symbolism and so forth. Ceremonial magic does too. Works with the angelic forces. An eclectic mind says, love stories. Arasham says, what is your view on energy absorption and transmutation? Instead of clearing negative energy, there's an idea of absorbing it in the body and transmuting it to positive. Is that possible? That would be shadow work, and yes, that would be turning what seems to be a negative force in yourself into something you can work with and something that's positive for you. I have a cup transformation spell that I have on our YouTube channel that you can look at and see. That's pretty much exactly what that is for, is taking the negative energy, putting it into a vessel, and then charging that up, and then transmuting it in transforming it into something you want. So you don't lose the energy per se, but you change the focus and then taking that back in. It depends on what kind of negative energy it is. Corbett says, I was never Catholic either, but I find using saints to be fascinating. Gabriel says, what's your point of view when the subject is about casting spells to others, positive or negative? How to know if it worked? Do you mean for others or on others? I think I need a little clarification there before I answer that. Sundrop says, when I was a little girl, my math tutor used to make me look into the mirror and say, I'm beautiful and pretty. After that, till this day, people compliment me on how pretty I am. Your thoughts? Well, Starhawk in her book has a similar exercise to do to accept your body and your form for where it is by looking in a mirror and putting any negative um, ideas or thoughts or perceptions you have about your body into the bowl of salt water at your feet, and then looking at yourself and gazing at yourself and affirming. Affirmations are definitely powerful things, and it can be considered a form of magic for sure. Gabriel says, well, both on others and for others, but I think I meant casting spells on others. It's going to depend upon the spell and what you're trying to do. Generally, I shy away from doing that because most of the spells people want to cast on others is to change their behavior and make them do what they want. And I personally think that that interferes with their free will. And doing it for others, you don't know for sure if they're telling you the truth about what their needs are. I have done that in the past, but I don't do it very often. And at this point, I only do that for family, for people I know extremely well. I don't do spell work for other people. Someone can't write to me and say, can you give me a spell for this or that, or do a spell for me for this or that? Because the answer is going to be no. My focus is on teaching people how to do their own magic and making their own choices. Because I think if you do a spell for someone else and it is got some bad karmic energy attached to it, then you're attaching yourself to that as well. And then you're going to be paying part of the price of the magic. I mean, there's always a certain amount of energy exchange when you're doing magic. So you want to be conscious about what kind of exchange of energy you're putting out there. Gabriel says, yeah, we did that, both on others and for others. I mean, these are all personal choices. Everyone has to decide what their own ethical system is and what's important to them. And since I initially thought I was Wiccan, I kind of went with the Wiccan threefold law, whatever, that whatever you put out comes back to you 3 times. So if you're putting out negative energy, then that's going to come back to you. And if you're putting out positive energy, then that's going to come back to you. And I know which kind of energy I'd rather have come back to me. But I'm not Wiccan, so it's not that I'm required to follow that particular rule, but it makes psychological and energetic sense to me. In my view, people that do magic and witchcraft consciously have more responsibility for their actions and for what they do than the average person. So someone who doesn't have any skills at all can do a spell and nothing will happen. It won't work. It won't, it'll just sort of hang there, and they may not have the same level of consequences for doing it as someone who knows what they're doing and is aligned with certain energies and powers and so forth and is drawing on them. Gabriel says, oh yeah, got it, thanks. Sundrop says, so we were doing magic unaware? You're doing positive affirmations, which is not technically magic. Anyone can do positive affirmations. Tammy says, wow, excellent answer. Good. I don't remember what I said now. Beth says, guys, I'm here just under the weather, so I'll be listening with an open heart. Hi, Beth. I'm sorry you're feeling under the weather. We're feeling spaced out and tired. So, not technically under the weather, but kind of off from our usual woo. Gabriel says, do you believe in reincarnation? If so, once a witch, always a witch? Well, that's how I know I was a witch. I remembered being a witch in another life. So I do believe in reincarnation. And I wasn't always a witch in the ones that I remember. I've remembered about 20 or so different past lives. And in some of them, I was definitely doing magic, being at a temple. I remember at Isis, Aphrodite, the Oracle at Delphi before Apollo came on, that kind of thing. So there's definitely a strand of energy of mine that goes back to that, but then there was lots of things that had nothing to do with what I would say is magic. Different circumstances and different lives. I rather like the one that I remembered being in the forest and being an herbalist living in a cabin and having in the middle of the woods and people coming to me for medicines and stuff. And I thought it'd be neat if I could remember that one accurately and vividly enough, then I wouldn't have to relearn how to use herbs. But I relearned just in case. Didn't want to just, trust my inner knowledge since information about stuff does change as time moves forward. Sheila says, is there a way to take back a cast that you've done in anger? I sort of changed the wording a little bit, but I think I got the message. I think there is. Um, I'm I'm not sure. It depends probably on the spell or the casting that you did and why. So that would be like circumstantial, individual circumstances. My general advice on anything like that, we had one of our former members did a rather intrusive violation of someone else's free will and then seriously had a backlash from it and wanted to know how to undo it. And I told her to undo it, you have to put as much energy into undoing it as you did into doing it. So you can cast a counter spell to take back the energy and dissipate it and put it somewhere else, as long as you're serious about it. If you're flippant, like she was, she did this crazy thing where she says, well, I took care of it. As the sun rose, I said, as the sun rises, my spell is done and is no more. And that was it. And I thought, yeah, no. Because I found the spell later that she did, and there was a lot of preparation and a lot of parts to it, and a lot of things that she had written down, and a bunch of stuff. So if you think about the balance, energy balance, when you're looking at this kind of stuff, then think of it that way. Think about how much energy did you put into that particular bucket. So you're going to have to do something to take that energy out of that bucket, and it might have as much as, if not a little bit more effort than what was done in the beginning. So I would think that. Corvidae says being an herbalist in the woods would be a dream. Yeah. As far as I know, that's the only part of that I got. It was sort of a short little snippet. So I don't know how it ended and whether it was, you know, one of those times when I got burned at the stake or something. Because that one I remembered only that part. So I'm not sure what led up to that. It's like you don't get the whole, it's not like a novel. You get an entire novel when you have a past life memory. It's like a snippet piece of it. Although sometimes I've gotten some interesting details. It's still, how well do you remember the life you're currently in? And then, imagine that you've been smushed around and thrown into a different time period numerous times, and how much of that are you going to remember from here? I think when we're not in our body and we're in between, we probably remember things more completely and might get a different perspective on it. Sundrop says, I'm thinking positive affirmation can be magic. Well, it can certainly be a part of taking control of your own personality and your own psyche, but people don't have to do magic to do that. They can go into therapy, and that can do it without them ever touching witchcraft, magic, spell work, or any of the other stuff, or whatever religion they're in, or not in, or whatever belief system they have. So it doesn't have to have that particular basis. Sundrop says, I've heard that you can do certain witchy practices and practicing witchcraft unaware, like you don't know how you're doing it. Well, that would be the ability to read the room, as it were, in the universal sense, and be able to navigate it. And you may not consciously know how you're doing it, but usually that means that you've had experience doing that in other lives, and the information is just there, and you can sort of see where things are heading and go with it. So I guess that could be witchcraft unaware, but witchcraft by definition is on purpose. You decide what you're going to do, and then you go about figuring out how to get it done, and then you apply yourself and you do it. I think they're talking about a different kind of thing. Gabriel says, I believe that if you have the opportunity to know you were once a witch in past lives, it can comfort your heart in a way. It's not like if you were a lost soul living on earth. But you could tell us if there's a way to access this information or files, if I can say that. It can be dangerous to try and access that information if you're not ready for it. It's one of the warnings that most of us get. I mean, I was born remembering two different, very different kinds of lives. And there must have been a reason why I decided I needed to remember those two lives when I came into this one. But when you vividly remember another life, you're also reactivating any of the unfinished business you might have had from then. And that can get confusing. And also can be psychologically untethering. There's been cases that I've heard of where people have forgotten who they are and haven't been able to get back to this life for years in some cases. So yeah, if you need to know the information, then you'll find a way to access it. And they say the Akashic Records has all that. When I first started learning and getting into the Akashic Records, everybody told me I shouldn't do it to find out information about myself, that I should only do it if I needed to find information out about someone else. And I don't know if that is really true or not, but that was sort of what I was going from. And so the few times that I've actually gone there and gotten some pretty intense information, it has been for other people and not for myself. Corbett A says, good to know I'm not the only one who only has snippets of their past lives. Yeah. Sandcat says, I drowned in a past life when a huge ship I was on sunk. I recall everything about it. I had a dream about it when I was a small child. I'm terrified of deep water where I can't see the bottom. And I'll add that no, I don't think it was the Titanic. It was just a very big steel ship. That's all I know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that my daughter, I remember her throwing herself off of a cliff on the coast of Greece and drowning. I don't know that she remembers that at all, but she did come into this life with a fear of water and not being able to see where it started, not just not seeing the bottom. When we were in a car, if we went by a lake and she was looking out the window and all she could see was water, she'd just start to scream. She did not like it at all. So, and I think that fears and anxieties often come from past lives. They don't always have to, but they certainly can be. There are certain, cases of that. Or somebody that has on what we would consider a very special skill that we can't figure out how they can do that. Like child prodigies, I think, are accessing experiences from other lives. Like if they're a musician and they have incarnated as a musician multiple times, like, some of our famous composers throughout history that started composing when they were 5 years old. I would suspect that, and same with painters and artists and so forth, and maybe scientists and that kind of thing. Sandcat says, I really dislike most bodies of water. I love forests and small streams. Vanessa V says, hello everyone. Late but here. Hi Vanessa V. Thank you for joining us again. Yeah, The things that we can tap into are interesting. Trying to stay grounded in the life that we're in, though, is the challenge, I think. To be here in this moment as much as we can. Julia says, listens with interest about past lives as I slip in finally. Hello, everyone. Hi, Julia. Gabriel says, what do you think about Summerland? Is it a Wiccan belief only, or do other types of witches also believe in Summerland as a place witches go after dying? How does it work on this astral plane? The astral plane can have all kinds of different places. There's no limit. It's like an infinite number of potential spaces out there. It's not like they take up physical space, so you can't fit things in. And Summerland is a nice idea. And I don't, you know, I don't know. I've probably seen it a few times when I'm helping cross somebody over, or a version of it. I think that what we think we're going to find is often what we end up with. So if you're going to program yourself with a place to go, that one seems like a pretty nice one. And isn't that where they're supposed to go and then decide they want to reincarnate when they're ready? Or is reincarnation necessarily a part of the Summerland package? I'm not sure. Luna says, hey all, how are you? Siofra and Ian. Not stopping long. Haven't up at 5 a.m. and it's 10:30 p.m. UK now. Hi Luna, thank you for joining us, even if it's for a few minutes. Ian and I have been up most of the night. And so has my granddaughter. So we're with you on that. Gabriel says, I mean, what happens there and who commands it? Okay, my experience of dying and going to the other side and of seeing other spirits going to the other side, it's like the only person who commands it really is yourself and your beliefs, your expectations and so forth that you have. I have a pretty vivid memory of sending myself to hell after one death because I didn't like what my thoughts looked like when I saw them, and I thought I deserved to be there, so I did send myself there. So it's not like there is an external force authority out there who's going through and saying, okay, you belong in this section, you belong in that section. It's more of an energetic affinity. You're pulled to it. And when I help spirits cross over, they all have somewhere different that they're going, that they expect, that's somewhere in their subconscious or was in their subconscious. And they all look different. I mean, I've seen mountains, I've seen cabins in the middle of the woods. I've seen houses on cliffs and houses in residential neighborhoods with tree-lined streets. I mean, everyone has been different and peopled with their loved ones or relatives or whatever that they expect to find there. Which is why working with yourself in your life is important, because you can clear out a bunch of gunk you don't know is hiding in your subconscious before you die, which is a good thing. An eclectic mind says that is so true. I remember crying as a child, not knowing what was real in the moment, was so confused, ended up shutting down that part of myself. Deja vu used to make me so confused. Yeah, and trying to remember where you're navigating in the moment in the reality we're in. Luna says, just been watching kids' cartoon show Hilda on Netflix. My youngest keeps asking how Fae exist, how the different planes work. One episode of Hilda we watched showcased this perfectly, with the little Fae folk complaining that they were tired of seeing human feet crashing through their homes, even though no physical damage was ever done. I like that. That's pretty cute. Sounds like a nice cartoon. And yes, I remember watching an interview of an elderly man in Iceland. They were talking to people about the fairy houses, all the stones and stuff like that that they had made a treaty with and so forth to keep everybody happy. And he was in school and he had a young boy fairy friend who would walk home with him from school, and he would take him to his fairy house and then invite him to come in with him. And he was afraid to go in the fairy house because it was a rock, and he thought he might get stuck. But now, as an old man, he wished he had tried because it would have been pretty cool to go see his fairy friend's house. So, yeah, never know. Gabriel says, "You're really smart and mind. Thanks for clarifying my thoughts. Here's one more question. Can you tell us one of the cases you helped spirits cross over, and how was it?" Um, Boy, I have had so many. A lot of them are very emotional, like the reasons why people are stuck. If they need help, there's usually some emotional component to it. And being an empath is what leads me to figure out how to help the most. So, figuring out what it is that the spirit is stuck with. I've met some that were afraid to cross over because they thought they were going to go to hell. There was a young woman who was murdered in our town years ago, and she was a prostitute. So she was pretty convinced that going over was going to send her to hell because of her job. And I convinced her that there wasn't any of that kind of judgment in the light. And so she crossed over with another younger girl who'd also been murdered that she had bonded with after her death. So it's kind of interesting that ghosts can form relationships with other ghosts after the fact. Um, I had one guy that refused to accept the fact that he was dead because he'd come over here to start a new life. He was from China, and he ended up getting um, the the pandemic, the influenza pandemic, the Spanish flu, and dying. And he just wasn't going to accept the fact that he was dead. So he was trying to stubborn it out, and he was very angry about it. So we had to I had to work with him through the stages of grief, starting with acceptance. So, and commiserate with how unfair it all was. There have been some that just didn't notice that they were dead, any number of those, where I helped them, understand where they were and what had happened. And then there were others that really wanted to get a message across, and in most cases, they'd been on the other side long enough that the person they were trying to get a hold of was no longer alive. And so I would find the person they were looking for on the other side and bring them forth. I have the ability to open up the portal between the worlds so that they can see that light, and I can communicate directly with that energy and get what it is they're waiting for or what they need. And I can't explain exactly how I do that, except I learned how to do that in a very massive ritual in Texas many years ago in the 80s, the um, early 80s. So, and also different religions. I had a Native American who had waited so long for them to find him, and they never did find him. He was waiting for certain rituals to be performed, and I was able to call his people over from the other side to be there with him and help him cross over. I'm just sort of like an intermediary between the two worlds. I open up the door, make a call, as it were, saying, here's who I've got, here's what they're looking for, who are supposed to come and help this spirit do what it needs to do next, and then sort of make the connection. So I guess I'm the phone line in a way. Luna says it showed the human homes with the Fey houses at the same time. Yep, there was a treaty in this cartoon between different beings. Yeah, maybe it was Icelandic with a name like Hilda. It could be. Gabriel says that was a typo. Ha ha, you're really smart and kind. Yeah, well, thank you. Corviday says I was comforted that my brother's spirit didn't need help crossing over. He stayed around a few days, but made his way into the afterlife on his own. And that's more typical. They can usually hang around for a few days to just sort of do kind of an energetic check-in with everybody before they're ready to cross over to the other side. So, and getting stuck is an exception, not a standard practice. Jennifer says, "Good morning." Hi, Jennifer. You must be where? Australia? Somewhere that way where it's morning. And tomorrow, probably Monday. Welcome. Yeah, just sort of, trying to keep your thinking cap on when you're figuring this stuff out. And try not to have too many assumptions. That's where we get ourselves in trouble. Gabriel says, as a witch, do you work or believe in familiars like dogs, cats, or any other pet you might have? I sometimes work with cats. I have spirit animals I work with more. And then I have some crows that commune with me from time to time and give me warnings, and I feed them peanuts in exchange. Some people work with familiars and some people don't. Luna says, I wish you could astrally open up doors for me each time my cat wants to go out, come in. Yep, the shore is Icelandic or Norwegian. Makes sense. I guess the Norwegians would probably have very similar take on that, considering they were the people who went to Iceland. Jennifer says, actually, it's afternoon in Oregon, but I'm in my morning. Oh, so are you in one of the places where we're having the snow and ice and whatnot in Oregon? I'm on the southern coast, and it's just sort of dreary here, but no ice or snow. Gabriel says, you might have. Yeah, I might have in the past. KJM says, caca. Gabriel says, sorry, my keyboard is in Portuguese and typing in English is a challenge as it keeps changing the words. Well, even English keyboards do that too. And when, yeah, especially on phones where they have predictive text and they think they know what you're typing, and then you type some word they don't know and they change it to a word that they have, which is generally nothing like the word you're trying to type. So I thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm always amazed that people have multiple languages that they can speak and communicate in, and you don't need to apologize for that. Gabriel says, yes, ha ha, yes. It's very true. I've had a few that I haven't caught and I've sent through in a text, and then I've looked at it later. I'm like, what? What the heck? And then I've had to add it to my dictionary so it won't happen again. Sandcat said, I was lying on my bed meditating and my cat jumped onto my chest for over an hour. She has never even jumped on my lap. She is not that kind of a cat, long of a cat. I felt the love for sure. Jennifer says, yes, ma'am. I got up multiple times to check things and slept in, just getting my coffee in. Yep, there's that Arctic mass. Fun and games. At least you must have power because you're on the internet, right? Or your cell phone towers are working. We're definitely not going anywhere. We have roads closed and slides and rivers trying to crest and whatnot. So we're staying home and safe. Talking to you lovely people. Well, it sounded like you needed to have some cat love. I think cats are pretty perceptive about our needs, although some of them are very confused. We have a confused cat right now. When we got up early this morning, he was very confused. He kept running around, meowing at us like, what are you doing? is it time to eat? And we're like, no, it's too early for you to eat. Are you sure you're up? Usually that means it's time to eat. So he wasn't too happy. Julia says, did you know that the title on this video is a week outdated? Oh, I forgot to change that. Sorry. It's Talking with Siofra, January 7th, as it was last week. Not sure what's going on. What's going to do to saving it? Well, when I save it, I'll change it to the right date. I have to edit each one when I go, and I was making sure it wasn't on private because we were checking it, making sure the stream was working first, and I forgot to change the date. You are correct. But it is the 14th, according to my computer. So no, I didn't know that. I will change it. I don't think YouTube cares what I call it. It doesn't really look at them, apparently. So yeah. Sandcat says, my other cat had his leg amputated last week. Oh, I remember you were telling us about him or her. He was so unhappy and wanted out of his cage where he had to be for a little while. He calmed right down after I explained everything that has happened. Oh, cool. Neglected Mind says, sorry, off topic. Your shawl is beautiful. The colors are some of my favorite and calming. Yeah, I think I picked this one up at Goodwill. It's a nice thick one. So, and I like the colors too. Sort of earth tones, but it's got some purples and whatnot in there too, and pinks and lavender thingies and whatnot. So thanks. It is warm. Sandcat said, my cat is still calm and accepting after I spoke to him. Well, I think that when we speak to animals, we're visualizing what we're saying and they can see the thoughts and they can also hear the tone in our voice. And so between those two things, that probably helps a lot. Gabriel says, can you give me any advice? I love working with social media as I am a marketing student and always think about sharing magical things I know, learn, or do. But I'm super afraid of being too judged or losing close people that don't know I do this or even be persecuted and such. Well, first thing I would do would get an alternative name. Should I just protect the secret or just be myself? I mean, you never know about people. Um, and if you have, if you're feeling cautious, there's no reason not to. You can have a name that you use just for your channel, and that can help give you a layer of protection. You can not tell your friends that you're doing it, the ones that you think would judge you. If you're going to do a YouTube channel, make sure you put all comments on held for review. In the beginning, when we first started this channel, we got a whole bunch of, I guess, hate texts, people judging and telling us we were going to go to hell and whatnot. And that was in the beginning, I decided it was a good thing. So after the show and when I put it out there, I change it to comments held for review so I can look at them before I let them go out there. And then the people that like to do that don't get the emotional jolt and whatever it is that they're getting out of being not nice, and they stop doing it. We haven't had that kind of post in quite some time. So that would be one way to protect yourself from that, and also to work on the fact that as human beings, we're fairly limited in what we really understand about the nature of reality. We see a very small part of it. So other people's opinions, do they really hold as much weight as, don't give them as much weight, which is a hard thing to learn how not to, to do, but that's sort of the ideal. And the better you know who you are, the better you can tell when somebody is just saying something off the top of their head or from their own projection and so forth, because we all live in a different universe. Each one of us is experiencing the universe from our own personal point of view. We are the center of our universe, and that includes all of them. And we can never know for sure all the different experiences and factors that have gone into making them have the judgments that they have or the projections that they might have. And I say this as if it's easy, but it's not. And I remember when I was little, I was devastated because people were afraid of me, and I couldn't understand why, because I never did anything to hurt anybody. As an older adult, I understand that they are afraid of things they don't understand, and I was something they couldn't quantify. And I couldn't, I kept leaking out of the boxes that they kept trying to stick me in, so I didn't hold together, and that was very unsettling for the adults around me, especially when I was really young and knew stuff I wasn't supposed to. So, um, connecting with the greater universe has been a huge assist when it comes to that. Finding other forms of consciousness that I can connect to, like the trees and the stones and the animals and that kind of things, who've got a much clearer and less subjective, in that sense, idea of who you are. So you have to work with it and decide what you're ready for. Luna says at Sandcat, I wanted to ask, but didn't like to in case the op didn't go so well. I hope your cat is feeling much better soon and adapting to his new way of life. Sandcat says, I always use an alternative name on social media, except on Facebook, which seems silly, but I've been on Facebook for so long, I don't think I could change my name now. And thank you, Luna. He gets his stitches out on Friday. He is hopping around pretty well and seems more loving than he used to be. Luna says, I was so scared setting out on my path about how I'd be judged. I changed my name secretly for over a year, so only I knew. Then changed it for real. It's taken the best part of 4 years, but I don't give a damn what anyone else thinks now. And that's a healthy perspective to have, I think. If the point of this is to evolve and develop your own path to get to, and become who you are, if you're always trying to please everyone around you and trying not to make waves, yeah, you're not doing that. Being a well-defined individual is part of the process, and it's okay to be well-defined. That doesn't mean you have to be critical and judgmental of people who are different than you, because they have to decide for themselves who they're going to be. But it also helps you to avoid certain circumstances that might arise when you can see who they're presenting themselves as and make a judgment based on that and whether you're going to let them in your life or not. or take what they have to say to heart. Sandcat says at Luna, I don't give a damn what people think of me either. And Luna says, love's back. And I think the longer that we're in this, on this path, the more that tends to happen naturally, because we get more accumulated experience. I mean, I'm a highly skeptical individual. I always have had a healthy amount of skepticism. I have a lot of strange things that happen to me, and I try to stay skeptical when they do and make sure that I'm not jumping to conclusions or becoming delusional or whatever else there might be that I could do. So I recommend that other people maintain a healthy amount of skepticism, but you know your own experience is better than anyone else does. And it's like, got to figure that out. Sundrop says, I'm afraid that I will be judged. I'm afraid that I will be shunned. My mom knows a lot, and I don't think she takes me seriously, at least not yet. I'm tired of hiding. I think you're not alone in that. acceptance and having a community is something that we're sort of hardwired to want. And I think it's great that this has allowed us to reach out to members of our community, per se, and get feedback from others who are more of a like mind than being stuck in whatever small little reality we've found ourselves in. I mean, heck, not that long ago, if you went 150 miles from where you were born, you were considered quite the traveler. Now people are jet setting around the planet and experiencing other cultures and talking to people from different places all over the place. So hopefully for the better, not for the worse, but there's always that too. Julia says, there are people whose opinion matters to me, but they already know my belief systems, my views, my past and current lifestyle, and what I'd like my future to be like. And I've made it very clear that there's more to come. Yeah, and people know me pretty well too, most of the time. Somebody put up a questionnaire like, what is the best and worst thing about you? I said, if asked, I will give my actual opinion. And that's the answer to both the best and the worst in other people's opinions about me. So I've made it very clear that they can disagree, even disapprove all they want. And I'm still the captain of my own ship, not them of mine. Yes, because you're the one who pays the price if you're not them. So good going, Julia.
There's sometimes it's the better part of judgment to just stay silent. Silent. I've been shunned enough. I've had enough of that.
Gabriel says, totally agree. I mean, it's easy to just don't care what other people say, but even though I'm 23, my family still interferes in my life, give opinions, judge, and try to force me to think their way as if I was a child. Yeah, people like to have, everything like them. They don't like, things that stick out, like me, you know, coloring outside the lines. Sandcat says, I don't know how to find others in my area that are like-minded. I've never met anyone like me. Well, we are all unique, so you will never meet anyone exactly like you because you are the sum total of your perceptions, experiences, assumptions, and beliefs and everything else. But there's a lot of communities out there like that. The average person in our community, I wouldn't want to walk up to and say, hey, although there are some people in my community that actually watch my show, which is always a surprise.
I put out there that you can't avoid being judged and you can't avoid being shunned. It's always a matter of relativity. If you're talking, there are levels and levels of magical people. If you talk about something too deep, you will get shunned by magic users anyway. I've had it happen over and over again, and there's no way to avoid it except silence, as far as I can tell.
Luna says that Sundrop may take little steps, drop comments to people you know and trust. It might go over their head and they don't notice, in which case you'll feel good about voicing yourself anyway. Sundrop says, but there are those who talk the Christian talk to me and I just don't agree with it. I'm silent. If I come out, I'll get the whole talk of I'm going to hell if I don't repent. Yeah, I think, like Ian said, sometimes silence is your best option.
Well, that's a problem with a lot of the organized religions is they feel that they have to promote their religion, and if they don't, they're doing something bad. So, a lot of the modern religions nowadays they put people in a headlock and say, go out and proselytize, basically.
Or else. Luna says, and the universe will acknowledge your efforts. If they do pick up on what you say, they might be curious and initiate a great conversation. You might be surprised. If not, then either way, they are not worth bothering with, or you just have to agree to have different outlooks on life and try to carry on. Yeah. I mean, it helps you to define yourself. And the universe is the thing you want to define yourself to. Other people don't matter as much as the universe. Like, yeah. So find ways to communicate with the universe. An eclectic mind says, laugh out loud. Everyone has an opinion. It is yourself you have to live with. And that's a fact too. It's like no one's walking your walk but you. No one's paying your price but you.
And I will say it's easier to walk your talk if you don't talk.
Sundrop says, I do wear crystals, the Ankh. I wear things to say my beliefs. No one has asked yet. Gabriel says, yeah. Well, even when you wear them, I mean, I have had this particular pentagram, it hasn't always been around, thing around my neck. It was the first one I bought myself when I lived in Santa Cruz. So I've had it since what? Well, I've had it for almost 40 years. And I openly wore it. It's got a moonstone in the center. And I had a neighbor, I think, come up to me at a bus stop one day when I was waiting for the bus, and he saw my pentagram and said, "Are you Jewish?" And I kind of looked at him and I said, "No. The Jewish Star of David is six-pointed. This is not a six-pointed star." So yeah, even when you wear your stuff in the open, people may not understand what it is. It gives you an idea of where they're at. It's like, can't even start a basic conversation if he doesn't recognize the symbol. And I used to wear Ankhs a lot too.
Well, I point out that symbols are just that too. If anybody gives you a hard time, a pentagram is just a star like goes on cross on top of your Christmas tree. I mean, the symbol is nothing except for the meaning that's attributed to it. Otherwise, it's just a physical object. So, you
Yeah, it's
know,
not intrinsically good or bad on its own. Julia says the lack of proselytizing was one of the things I found most appealing in Wicca and other pagan paths. When I was a teen, I was forced to go witnessing on public streets at a certain summer camp. Oh yeah, getting you out of your comfort zone, eh? Trying to get other people into your non-comfort zone. A Christian summer camp, that is. Well, we figured that was the case, but thank you for clarifying.
but it has to do with people anyway who are convinced, once they found something that they've got the way and they need to let everybody else know it. So it's not, I mean, it is a built-in problem to some of the religions, but it's not intrinsic to religion. I think it's more intrinsic to people who want to bring everybody into whatever they're into.
Well, and that's true, not just with religious views, but also diets, um, you know, things that they've discovered that work for them, medications, whatever it might be. People get very excited when they find something that works for them and they want to share it with everybody. But then everybody's different, so it doesn't always work. Well, so far we still have our internet, so that's good. Luna says that Julia, same here. I used to get judged at church for not wanting to fish for men. Fish for men? Is that like a secret way of proselytizing for men, or is that like to get a Christian man to come to you?
My grandmother got kicked out of church once because she wore short sleeves. Just saying.
Gabriel says, sure, I've been through a financial breakdown, so I had to go back to my mother's house, and that, my friends, is being challenging. Like everyone in the family except me, she's a Christian, so, I'll do my best to build my life in freedom again Well, I'm already doing it. Well, good. Good for you. And sometimes we need help, especially in today's economy, worldwide even. It's just, Corvidae says, ah, yes, we must be fishers of men. This is not something I'm familiar with.
No, they believe that nowadays too. They just believe in fishing for your wallet instead.
Julia says they took the fact that the word gospel meant good news seriously. And what do you do with good news? It was, to a point, understandable, but not to my taste, though I gave it the good old try. I'm always amazed when people come to my door without an invitation and then are insulted when I tell them I'm not interested in talking to them. And I'm like, yeah.
When I was going to college, it was a problem because I would get harassed at least 4 times a day, if not 6 times a day, depending on how many classes I had at college. Because we lived close to the college, so I go on campus and then back off campus and go home and eat lunch and back on campus again, and they would hit me going on and going off every time. And nobody could understand over there why I was upset at being hit up 4 to 6 times a day with proselytizing and trying to give me their leaflets and pamphlets and things. It's like, Jesus Christ, once a month would have been enough, but like 4 times a day, every day for weeks,
Yep, that
four
was
to six
annoying.
times a day. And they're like, I talked to them at the college, like, what? Why does that bother you? Yeah, sorry.
Vanessa V said, I was wearing a jasper pendant while teaching, and a student liked it. She said she had tried a rose quartz once, but that she felt it was so heavy and she felt exhausted. Any idea what that might be? Well, people have different reactions to stones depending on what their energy is doing and what and it and for me, rose quartz is a wonderful stone and I love it a lot. But I can imagine, it's like if it's opening up something she's not ready to look at, or it's just like the wrong energetic thing for her at that time. People can be allergic to anything, including things that are good for them in food or stones. So everybody's different. Gabriel says, I love the Are You Jewish story. Yeah, I was kind of surprised at the time. Sheila says, I always use the quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. People think I'm a nerd. That's not a bad cover story. Julia says, ugh, Luna, I wish they'd have said that to me and I had the nerve and sense of humor I have now. I'd have brought a bucket of worms to Sunday school or something. Yep. Corvidae says, I think it's something Jesus said, to be fishers of men, spread the good news. Yeah, who knows? It's what they said he said. Who knows if he said it? Vanessa V says, I don't know if she is into these things. I don't think so, but I told her it might be energy from someone who had touched it before her. But she also struggles with depression. So it might get her too in touch with her feelings, and depression is the most common feeling she's having. So that could be, it could increase that until she works through it more or gets more balanced. But yeah, sometimes it is energy that someone else has put into an object that you're reacting to. But I think you can just react to the energy of the stone itself, and you don't always know why. So finding different stones that do the purpose that the rose quartz does that are compatible with her, like maybe an amethyst, for example, would be potentially a good substitute for the rose quartz, because it's like, well, I love the amethyst, so what can I say? I think it might be good, but you'll have to try it, or she'll have to try it and decide. Maybe it's just a regular old rock will do her more, like a black stone or something. I don't know. Luna says rose quartz is meant to promote self-love, but maybe she can't love herself until she's worked through her blockages. That's another possibility. We'll be guessing since we don't know her. But when someone says that they're having an adverse reaction to something, take them seriously. It could mean that she needs to adapt to it, and as her energy shifts, it'll have a different, she'll have a different reaction to it. Or maybe not. I read a story about a woman who was allergic to rubies, and if she held a ruby, she would get a fever. So, Sandcat says, my parents sent me to Sunday school as a child because my gran was coming to babysit me, and I knew nothing of God. It terrified me until I was an adult. I didn't last long at Sunday school. Gabriel says, what is your point of view of people that come to this life with mental disorders, diseases like depression, bipolar disorder, autism? Could magic help to cope with everything? Well, magic can assist with that, but it's not necessarily the solution to everything. Because you've got your physical body, genetics, family history, the energy that you're born into and raised in and so forth. There's a lot of different factors. Certainly, combining magical approaches to help delve into your own subconscious and maybe start the process of rearranging things down there in combination with therapy and medication or meditation or whatever. Um, do what you can. I don't believe that people who are born that way are born that way because they're being punished or they chose it. I think that is a misguided notion to try and explain things in the world that doesn't really work very well. So, when people who have difficulties or born with an illness or something like that, not that they deserve it or wanted it necessarily at all. Just sometimes stuff happens. Sandcat says, because I asked too many questions, which is why you didn't last long at Sunday school. Yeah, yeah, I understand that Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't do very well in that regard either. He also couldn't get on a jury. Luna says, I'm off now. My Mr. Stardust is making biscuits on my arm. Jono is sick and off to the GP early in the morning, and I have to get up way too early. Thanks all and blessings for the week ahead. Thanks for dropping in, Luna. Sorry Jono's not feeling well. Sandcat says that Gabriel, as a parent of an autistic son, I would say no. Meditation, yes, definitely. Julia says, I have major clinical depression myself, and I have to watch the types of medicine as well as the dosage of it so it doesn't cause me to zombie out emotionally. But otherwise, no, it doesn't hinder me. It doesn't hinder your magic. Good. I think, again, it's like everybody else. It's everybody has a different response to all of that stuff. Julia says, blessings, Luna. Gabriel says, thanks at Sandcat. Barrow says, where do you all get crystals? Everywhere seems suspect. I, generally speaking, go to a shop in person. We have like a rock show that comes once a year here, and I've been going to it every year for a long time. And some of the stuff they dig up themselves. There's some local stones and things like that, but at least that way I can sort of handle a crystal in person and get a feel for it, whether or not it's something that I want or that's compatible with me or wants to come home with me or what have you. Buying them off the internet can be challenging. I did buy Ian and I both a small amethyst ball one year from India, one for each of us as our solstice present. But yeah, you have to, like, I can't use Tibetan crystals because of looking into one and seeing some very disturbing images of how it was being mined. Um, and, so depending on how sensitive you are, after that, I'm afraid to touch another one because I don't want to see that again. Luna says that Gabriel, I didn't leave yet. I'm autistic and so are my 4 kids. Meditation has been key in turning my life around and helping my kids too. And at Julia Hearts. Vanessa V says amethyst might work, but don't know if I can say so, if she would be open to try. I know what depression is like, so I would love to help, but I don't wish to be pushy either. Well, you could just bring a nice amethyst with you and show it to her and see if she's interested. Just say, hey, I know that you really liked the rose quartz and you couldn't wear it, so I thought maybe you'd like to try an amethyst and see what you think, and if not, that's fine. I don't know. Julia says, I can't get to many in-person style shops myself, so when I order a type of crystal stone from online, I ask that I get the right one from the universe to suit my needs and energy. Works pretty good. Yeah, sometimes you just have to trust that you'll get the right thing. Gabriel says, down here in Brazil, there's loads of shops that sell every kind of magical tools, including stones and crystals, especially here in the city I was born, Curitiba. There's so many witches. Well, awesome. I've done some Reiki on a couple of people in South America, not in Brazil, but Ecuador and Chile, I think, recently. It's always fun to do distance healings on people in different parts of the planet. But yay, nice to be in a place that has lots of witches and witch shops. Just go into a store. We hardly ever get good witch shops here. They come, they go, they last for a brief time, and then they're gone again. Locals here don't like them. We may not be in the quote unquote Bible Belt, but there's certainly plenty of people who are of that persuasion in town and like to try and stop that from happening because they're worried that it's going to give Satan a foothold. Gabriel says, thanks, Luna. I'll try to add it more frequently in my routine meditation. Maybe she can suggest what kind, too. Vanessa V says, yeah, it could be. Thank you. I was also thinking of wearing more stones, see if that sparks a deeper interest. Perhaps if she is into this, she'll feel comfortable to tell me. Yeah, maybe she will. Who knows? Julia says, Diam, yes, precious, lots and lots of shops and witches, eyes twinkling happily. Sandcat says, that kind of thinking makes me mad. If people don't like a shop, don't go into it. Yeah, I agree. But, if they're going to come to your door and knock on your door, I mean, we had a young woman in town who had a ELF 666 license plate, and her entire neighborhood banded together to confront her about being a witch. And she's not. She just has a license plate on her car. Randomly selected license plate for her car. So, yeah, you got to watch out for people's assumptions. They have a lot of them. I was shocked when she told me that story. I was just like, seriously? She said, yep. They wanted to have a sit down meeting, and this is what they told me. And I looked at them like, what? So, hey. So far, I haven't gotten any guff from putting up my my palm protections on the front gate and on my door. The mailmen, the mail people, mail deliverers, both men and women, have adapted to it being there and no longer avoid my front gate. So that's good because it's not meant to keep them out. Corviday says, I miss my local Satan's Foothold, joking, of course. Unfortunately, the shop had to close due to the owner's health. Aw, I'm sorry. It's no fun when people get sick. Gabriel says, well, Curitiba is a metropole, like a metropolis, and it is the capital of the state of Parana, where I am from. So I feel people tend to be more different, and it's okay. Thank universe, at least I was born here. Yeah, when I lived in Santa Cruz, I didn't have much of a concern about being public and riding the bus and, just being myself, because Santa Cruz was definitely at the time a much more open city where individual expression was encouraged. Gabriel said, as I said, my family, very Christian, are all from the countryside. Cool. Not that they're from the countryside and that they're Christian, but that you have these other part of the community available. Yep. Very few people ever actually reevaluate the beliefs that they were born into. So I consider that's a good step when you start to question those beliefs and look at them and try to determine whether or not you still want them or not. We've only got a few minutes left. We're getting on to less than 5 minutes. So if you guys have other stuff you want to quickly get in there, feel free. I remember when I told a person who was becoming a non-Mormon that I wasn't a Christian, she almost fell off my table. I had sort of expected, since she had like gone to all the trouble to tell me this very detailed story about how she had her name removed from the book and all this other stuff and left the religion, that wouldn't be like such a mind-blowing statement, but apparently it was. And I never saw her again. I'm wondering if that's why. It could be. Maybe have nothing to do with it, but it could be. I don't know. Since I never saw her again, I didn't find out. But it was sort of surprising that she didn't realize that there were people who existed that weren't Christian and that she might run into one. So, anywho. Gabriel says, any tips to energize the magical instruments like wands? You got to watch my wand videos. I have a number of videos on wands, how to make them, how to use them, some of the different ones I've constructed. It's a lot of information, and you can make a wand very specific to the task or the energy that you're trying to connect to. Sundrop says, most people assume I'm Christian and will be surprised I'm not. I'd say I'm pagan, still learning. Corviday says, have you ever had to cover your head spiritually? I had to the other night. It was like the universe was too loud. I grabbed a scarf and it was a shield and it seemed to help. Yeah, I've had to use silk to cover my head if in certain circumstances when feelings are overwhelming, and it does help. After 9/11, I had to cover my head in silk to try and dampen the intense emotional stuff that just was flying in every direction at me. So yeah, I have. And yeah, and I have done that doing drawing down the moon ritual, cover myself in a white veil, silver white veil, and that is so that I can allow the goddess energy to build up inside of me and sort of separate myself a little bit from what's going on so that I can allow it to happen. Beth says, I enjoyed listening and everyone had good questions and were engaged. Hopefully I'll feel up to participating. Blessed be. Hopefully so. I guess we'll see you next week. Julia says, hugs Beth. Caring. Gabriel says, I came up to your channel just by a wand video. Ha! I'll definitely binge watch it. Vanessa V says, I feel there's a lot of talk here about how Christians are disrespectful towards pagan, but I have felt it more from non-religious people on how we are living a make-believe. Well, yeah, there's no doubt there's a lot of judgment on all different sides and from scientists and so forth, too. Julia said, blessings to you and everyone else. And again, thanks to Siofra and Ian, as always. Love this place and those in it so much. All right, guys. I guess it's time for us to say goodbye and blessed be. And the next time I see you, I will be a year older. Although it will only be a week. So it's a weird time.
Blessed be everyone. Thank you for being here.
All right. Gabriel says, I loved meeting this community here. Thanks, everyone. Blessed be. Thank you, guys.